Hi guys, please excuse the mess. I just got around to finding something here that I had bought probably 10 years ago and never got around to using. And what it is ceramic casting slip. Stir well before pouring. And what this is clay that has been prepared so that you can pour it into a mold. And even after 10 years, it's still wet, and it's not thin anymore. So I'm going to have to thin it out with some water. But stuff will last a long time if you keep it wrapped up. And what I did was transfer some into this. Well, by the way, since it's almost Halloween, I decided to, in the spirit of Halloween, use this little bucket here as well as make a two-part mold that I'll be pouring this into. And I transferred this here to the bucket, and it needs to be thinned out. I haven't added water yet. So I'm going to do that next. I'm going to add some water here and thin this out. And then I'll show you the mold that I made. Alright guys, so I went to the dollar store and I picked up a couple of these bobblehead skulls here. And here's the actual one that I used. Just had to break it off the spring there. And with this one I made a two-piece plaster mold here. And by the way, this is the first time I've ever made a two-piece plaster mold. So I'm kind of experimenting with this as I go along. But I do understand the concept behind it. What I'll be doing is taking top piece here, placing it in position over the bottom piece and matching it up into those slots like that. And what I don't have is something to hold them together. I could probably use a belt for this because I know I have a belt. By the way guys, this is not a ceramic pottery or ceramic studio I'm in here. And I'm just kind of making a lot of this up as I go along, so bear with me please. So once I have the casting slip thinned out like I want it, I'll pour it into the hole here and let this fill up. And leave the clay inside the mold for approximately 15 minutes. Then I'll be turning this mold over, and that's why I'm going to need a belt or something to keep these two parts together. And I'll drain out the clay, the remaining clay inside the mold here, and then let the clay inside there sit for probably 2-3 hours. It's raining outside today, so yeah, probably at least 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. Let it sit till it hardens, and then I will separate the two pieces here and pull what will then be the clay skull from each part of the mold. So that's the plan guys, and hopefully we'll get a skull out of this. So let me start thinning out this clay over here, and then we'll pour it into the mold. Guys, that's a little bit too soupy, a little too wet I think, but I'm going to go ahead and do the first pour with this. And if it absorbs into the mold, I will top it off again. Alright, it's been about 15 minutes now, so I'm going to go ahead and pour the remaining clay out of the mold. And as you can see, I never did get a belt or anything to hold the two pieces together, so I'm going to just try to do the best I can. Alright, here's a look at the mold the next day. I thought I was going to be able to separate this in just 2 or 3 hours, but I was wrong about that. This has actually been probably 15 hours now, and it's still kind of damp here, so I'm not going to separate the mold when it's that wet. Here's a look at some that spilled out of the bucket here. And you see how soft it still is. I want it to get more of this grayish color here before I try to separate the two parts here, guys. So I continue to let it dry out here, and hopefully by the end of today I'll be able to pull the mold apart and we'll see what we have, guys. Alright, I was hoping to be able to separate the two mold parts earlier, but it's been raining all day today and the clay never dried out like I had hoped it would. So I've had this fan here on the mold now for about 3 hours. So I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to go ahead and try to separate the two pieces now of the mold. Okay, it's pretty dry now, guys. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the knife here, cut right around here so that this doesn't lock in the mold, the skull. And the way I've designed this mold is the top part here has to come off first. So I'm going to go ahead and try to separate that. There we have it. I can smooth these areas off once the skull dries a little more tomorrow. But the two parts worked out together. I was able to separate the skull. What I did wrong really was make this hole too small here, the pore hole, and so it doesn't dry out fast enough. And so the next time I make a mold, I'll make sure that that hole is bigger. But I think it turned out pretty well, guys. First time I have ever made a two-part plaster mold. I've made other molds before, but not out of plaster, and so I feel pretty good about myself here, guys. Also, I haven't used this clay in a while, so I'm glad to see that just adding some water makes it possible to use again. And like I said earlier, it's about 10 years old, so as long as it has water in there and the bag is wrapped like it was, it should be able to be used indefinitely. So I'm going to smooth this up after it dries tomorrow, and smooth the seam here and also the back here. And that's it, guys. Here's a look at the piece after it's been cleaned up, and this is ready for the bisque firing now. As you can see, I cut the bottom out here, and I capped off or closed the hole that was here. What I did was, when I cut this out, I just took a piece here and put it on here, smoothed it out. It really only took about a minute to do that, and realized that I needed to make some, or I should probably make some modifications to the mold, so that I would already just have the hole here and not have to fill this one in. And let me show you what I did to the mold. So what I've done is carved this out, and this is going to be the hole that I'll be pouring the clay into. This hole here, the original pour hole, I will be filling this in with plaster, smoothing it out here. And once they're placed together, I also made a flattened area here on the back side so that I can lay the mold down. It will not move around too much. And this is more of a traditional way of making this two-part mold. Will eliminate me from having to fill in the area back here. I'll already have a hole in here. So that'll be a little bit better. The only thing that I'm not going to like is that with the hole here, right in the separation of the two parts, I'll definitely have to have a rubber band or something to hold this together. Unlike the one that I made, where the first time when I had the hole in the top, just pure gravity would keep it together. So, pros and cons, I guess. I learned more about making molds from making this one. So, overall, it turned out pretty well. I'll fire this, and maybe I'll make a video about that later. The only thing is, I'm going to have to find out what temperature to fire this clay. It's been so long that I can't remember, and I don't think I have any glaze either, so it may take a little time to actually glaze this piece. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching, and until next time, everyone have a great day and take care.